since I was in that sled. Never thought it would actually come up for use in any forum. Thank you, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to talk about what the U.S. Navy is doing with respect to alternative fuels and biofuels and where we see the future for us. It's my pleasure to be here to talk to you about and really think about the Department of the Navy's perspective on the biofuels industry and provide some insight as to where the Department of the Navy is going with its energy program. We understand that energy is an essential resource for the Navy and the Marine Corps to meet our requirements to perform our missions. The Department of the Navy plays a critical role in protecting the global commons, making the world safe against acts of piracy, providing humanitarian assistance, and of course providing security to protect the interests of our countries and like-minded countries and allies around the world. And sometimes we do all these things in the same day. We've done this since the department was established over 200 years ago, and will continue to do so. Our energy strategy is one that's well thought out use of resources to lessen our dependence on the use of petroleum. As a country, we use 25% of the world's oil. We have, but only 2% of the world's proven oil reserves. As a Navy, we average 30 million barrels, more than 30 million barrels of oil each year to support the operations of our 285 ships and 3,700 aircraft. 30 million barrels of fuel is a lot of fuel and it's very costly. Our dependency on these fuels, these fossil fuels, largely foreign sources of fossil fuels, degrades our national security, negatively impacts our economy, and ultimately causes harm to the planet. This in turn makes us more vulnerable to price shocks, supply shocks, natural and man-made disasters, and the proliferated unrest in oil-producing countries. This resulting volatility also costs us a lot of money and has indeed even more profound impacts. Each year, the Department of the Navy spends $4 to $5 billion for fuel. For every $1 increase in the cost per barrel of fuel, the Navy effectively experiences a $31 million increase in its fuel costs. This past year, we had a $38 per barrel increase in fuel over what was budgeted in our 2012 budget. That translates to more than $1 billion of additional fuel costs. And we have to look for other places to somehow offset that. We can't go back to our Congress and ask for more money. We need to find other ways to do that. We pay for these increases by training less. We fly our aircraft less, we steam our ships less, and we reduce the maintenance on our infrastructure, our buildings, and others. So these responses obviously have significant consequences. And as we examine the overall picture, several of the oil-producing countries who don't necessarily share the values of the U.S. or our allies around the world have a say in our training and readiness. We believe this is an unacceptable situation. So what's our plan for the Navy? As the U.S. government leader in energy security, the Secretary of the Navy has outlined 5 energy goals in October 2009, which we seek to enhance and better enable our defense capabilities, sustain the environment for future generations, and promote a clean energy economy. We understand that major steps are needed to move in that direction to enhance our energy security and independence. Our initiative to help us reach these goals is the development of alternative biofuels from alternative sources of fuels for our ships and aircraft to obtain 50%, half of our fuel from alternative sources by 2020. We intend to do this by using some historic authorities to invest along with the private sector to create an industry, catalyze an industry within the U.S. That we need, and this is the biofuels market within the United States. In March of last year, President Obama directed the Navy to work with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Department of Energy to catalyze and accelerate the maturation of a domestic alternative fuels biofuels market in the U.S. These 3 agencies represent essentially the value chain, if you will, from feedstocks to technology to indeed a market. And that's what the Navy brings. Together, we've agreed to invest more than $500 million with private investment that we're seeking to be at least equal to that, so more than $1 billion with private sector investment over the next 3 years to produce advanced drop-in aviation and marine biofuels to power the military and commercial transportation. The objectives of this effort are to create multiple commercial-scale, geographically diverse biofuels plants that have a better or equal life cycle greenhouse gas emissions than petroleum, that don't negatively impact food, and we're also being mindful of the impacts to water and land use. And bottom line, these fuels have to be competitive. We're in as very well known, we're in a difficult fiscal environment around the world, but certainly in the United States as well. And so it's really critical that these fuels are price competitive, and that's really one of the key objectives of this effort as well. In addition, these fuels must be drop-in replacement fuels, requiring no changes to our infrastructure, no changes to our engines, no changes to our aircraft or ships. And it must not have, as I mentioned before, negative impacts on the food supplies. Now you might wonder why, is this the Navy's role to take on? Well, in a very real way, this is nothing new for the Navy. Back in the early 1800s, we sought steel for the hulls of our ships. And at that time, we purchased all of our steel from England and Germany. And seeking to change that, we made the decision to invest in the U.S. steel industry. And as a result, we created an economically competitive domestic steel industry in the United States. The Navy created this industry, the steel industry back then, and we believe we can bring this, be a similar catalyst to the biofuels market today. We believe biofuels and alternative fuels not only help meet the Navy's goals, but also lead to the making of a new industry within the U.S., and we hope around the world. For our fleet, we're in the final stages of testing all of our ships and aircraft on ready drop-in 50-50 blends of alternative fuels. Last year, we flew, or 2 years ago, we flew a F-18 fighter jet on a 50-50 blend of fuel at Mach 1.7. In December, we tested a ship on a 50-50 blend that went more than 50 knots on these fuels. The fuels that we've used include feedstocks from agricultural products like algae, agricultural food oil waste, and even variants of mustard seeds to produce the fuels we need to power our ships and aircraft. We're also looking and aiming to be not just searching for alternative sources of fuel, but also looking to be more efficient. And by being more efficient and more independent, more diverse in our sources of fuel, improves our overall capabilities both strategically and tactically. A mature